All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight for Congressman Chris Deluzio's town hall. Right now, I would like to welcome your Congressman Chris Deluzio. So my name is Caroline, and I'm the Congressman's District Director. I will also be your MC tonight to help make sure that we get to as many of your questions as possible. We have them right here if you gave us a ticket when you came in. I know the Congressman is really looking forward to hearing from you. I will give more instructions on Q&A in a little bit, but right now I'm very excited to welcome our Girl Scouts from Troop 52272, who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone please stand. Just stand right in the middle. Yeah. Thank you guys. All right. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Constitution! Thank you. Everyone be seated, please. And now please welcome Congressman Deluzio.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, all right. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming. Welcome. Hello. All right. I want to thank my team for getting set up, Montour School District, the staff here for hosting us. I think we got officers from Kennedy Township and the school resource officer here. Thank our Girl Scouts, wherever you guys went. Thank you very much for leading the pledge. And thanks to all of you, right? This is our democracy. We all have a say in this thing. I represent all of us. It's our government. So thank you for being here tonight and making sure your voices are heard. Many of you, I hope, know who I am. I've been our congressman since I was elected in 2022. I grew up not too far from here in Thornburg. She went to 6th grade in this school. I'm a graduate of Canevin. I went off to the Naval Academy after high school. And to give you a sense of how old I am, I turned 40 last year. The 9/11 attacks happened my senior year of high school. So a lot of what drove my generation off to go serve, that was a big part of our lives. I became a lawyer after my military life. My career in uniform took me a lot of places, deployed at sea a couple times. I deployed on the ground in Iraq. And then after became a lawyer, was working on a bunch of things, voting rights, election security, cyber issues. I was at Pitt, working there, helped organize a union with the steelworkers, and good people of this district elected me to represent us in Congress in 2022, and I've been honored to get to do that job since then. I'm a dad of 4. The grays haven't started coming yet, but they're getting there, believe me. This job is not one for the faint of heart. And I will tell you, I have a bunch of remarks that I prepared about what's going on in Washington, and to give you guys kind of the normal update of what our government's doing. But I will be blunt, we are not in normal times in Washington. I think many of you probably know that. I think our constitutional order is under great stress. I think we are in a moment of great risk to this country. I think that we have seen pretty brazen attacks on the rule of law. And these are not small, simple partisan disputes. I think a lot of this goes to the heart of what our Constitution means. The Constitution, by the way, that I take an oath to as a member of Congress, that everyone who serves in this country takes an oath to. It's a big deal. And we've seen, I say illegal conduct, I don't mean that lightly. We've seen this play out in the courts. The courts have blocked so many things the Trump administration has tried to do because they're against the law. Against the law. Not spending the dollars that the Congress approves and authorizes, trying to destroy agencies that the Congress creates. That's against the law. That is against our constitutional structure. The Congress decides. Your representatives decide. Trying to freeze federal grants and federal infrastructure money. You know what those projects are? It's a sewer project in Crafton. It's a Montgomery Lock and Dam project in the Ohio River. That might not mean much, but it's huge for our region's economy. We're talking like a $900 million contract to build infrastructure on the Ohio River through which billions of dollars of commerce flows in our region. Thousands of construction jobs alone. These guys tried to freeze that. I could go on and on about every infrastructure project they tried to freeze illegally. Tried to shut down government agencies. Department of Education just this week announced massive targeted firings. I won't list them all. I'll name one. The CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You may know what that is. They are the financial cops on the block who protect us from crooks and grifters and fraudsters. This administration tries to shut them down. And I will tell you, I support our government being more efficient. I want us to save our money. But this DOGE, this Department of Government Efficiency, my problem is not that Elon Musk is a rich guy. My problem is that he's walking around with huge conflicts of interest. It is corrupt to have The corruption to me is a guy having massive conflicts of interest, having contracts with our government, millions upon millions, inserting himself into all parts of our government, making decisions that serve his interests, empowered by this president. That is corruption to me. It is throughout what I've seen in our government. I'm not interested in robber barons plundering us, plundering the core of what our government should do. We haven't even gotten into the cuts that we have seen that could hurt us here. I'll talk about a few. NIH, National Institutes of Health. You may know what that is. The NIH funds a lot of life-saving research. There are treatment studies, cancer research. I could list a bunch of things. In our region, our economy around here, we have strong manufacturing. We have a lot of eds and meds though too. Eds and meds, that's the higher ed, the medical research. We have jobs on the line. More than $700 million of that NIH funding came to our region last year alone. That's life-saving research for people. Jobs all over Pennsylvania that they tried to cut and the court said they couldn't do, but they're still trying to do it. That we would suffer from. Let's talk about Social Security. Okay, you earn Social Security in this country, right? You pay into Social Security, you earn it after a lifetime of hard work. Elon Musk this week said it flat out on television. He's going to go target Social Security. We've already seen the administration target workers at the Social Security Administration. What work do they do? They're making sure that seniors get their checks. They're making sure that the administration is working so that it's delivering benefits that are earned. They want to fire him. VA. I'm sure I have some fellow veterans in here. Yeah. Look, I think this country, you ask people in my district and this district in Western Pennsylvania, Republicans and Democrats, they expect us to pay for the cost of war, and that is treating veterans when they come home. Yes. I don't think it's that controversial. But when you turn around and you go to fire thousands of veterans, 80,000 is their plan. Excuse me, Veterans Affairs workers, many of whom are veterans, 80,000. You are not going to deliver veterans care if you fire 80,000 VA workers. Think about that. And that is the exact moment that our country is finally stepping up to say that you've been exposed to toxic substances in your service, burn pits, Agent Orange. My fellow veterans who are exposed to that stuff are finally coming into the VA, and they're looking to fire these people who are there to deliver care and benefits. I think it is a betrayal. Anybody pay attention to the budget that passed in the House recently? Okay. Look, I believe in fiscal responsibility, okay? I think we should be smart about what we take in and what we spend. That budget that my Republican counterparts passed on a purely party line vote would balloon our deficit, trillions, saddle us all with debt, plunder healthcare, target Medicaid at the tune of $900 billion almost, to funnel tax giveaways to billionaires and huge corporations. I do not support it. And look, I just listed a bunch of things that I don't like, that I think you expect me to fight against, and I am going to, and I am fighting against them. But I also don't think it's enough to just say no and that things are bad. And what I talk about a lot is that we have to revive and restore the American dream. I'm 40. People my age and younger, right? The idea that you'd be better off than your parents. Yeah, someone 20, 25 years old, if they think that. It's slipping away. And I think that is a failure across decades of our government. To me, the basic American dream is you work hard, you play by the rules, you have a life with dignity, you have freedom in this world. You can afford your life. We got to do more of that. And so that is what I am committed to doing in this job. I believe deeply. I try to find common ground where I can with whoever, when it matters to all of us around here. But I stand my ground when we need to. And right now is the time for us to stand our ground. All right. Well, you didn't just come to hear from me, though. So I'm going to flip it back to Caroline. We're going to start taking some questions. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in our democracy. It really is an honor to get to be our congressman. Flip it back to Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. All right, before we get started with our Q&A portion, I'd like to go over some ground rules to make sure that we have a productive discussion. So I'm going to draw tickets from this basket here and call out numbers 2 at a time, just to give us time to queue folks up. So if you hear your ticket number called, please stand up and walk to the edge of your row. And my colleagues, Vicky and Chase, if you guys can raise your hands, we'll come and find you with a microphone. The first number I called, we'll go to that question first. After it's answered, we'll go to the next number, and we will repeat that process for as long as we have time. So if your number is called and you have the opportunity to ask a question, we ask that you please limit your question to 30 seconds. We have timers. We will time you just to make sure that we get to as many folks as possible. We have a lot of people here. When you ask your question, tell us your name and what township or borough you live in first. And then finally, just don't be a jagoff. We have some kids here, so everyone let's be polite, and hopefully we'll have a very productive discussion. So with that out of the way, I'm going to draw our first question. All right, our first ticket number is 667075. So come to the end of your row. And then our second number is 667007. All right.
Hi, my name is Mary Jane. I'm from Harmony Township in Beaver County. Mary Jane, Harmony Township, Beaver County. And we have a number of schools in our area that struggle to meet their financial responsibilities. Ambridge, Aliquippa, New Brighton, Beaver Falls. Could you explain or address some of the impacts to the resources to our special education teachers, our Title I, our tutors? Thank you.
I'm going to walk around. I think you said Mary Jane. Okay. Thank you. Can everyone hear what she asked? Okay, good. Okay. I'm going to walk around. Hopefully I don't fall down the stage, guys. I mentioned a little bit about the Trump administration's efforts to cut the Department of Education, right? We've heard them say they want to eliminate it entirely. This week, I mentioned there were cuts of around half the workforce, the Department of Education. And one of the things that I hear a lot about in our region, right? My district, maybe people know, all of Beaver County, about half of the people of Allegheny County. A lot of great school districts, a lot of school districts that struggle financially and everywhere in between. And across those districts, the Department of Education, federal funding is a big part of keeping schools afloat and frankly help schools deliver, particularly for kids with disabilities. Right? The federal government helps out a lot. The law is the IDEA. If you've got an IEP, and anyone who knows what that is, you understand it is the way that the federal government helps parents in schools make accommodations so that kids can learn. Kids can go to the schools in their communities, have the support they need. The federal government plays a huge role in that. And even if the federal government's not cutting funding, and I know they're trying to, but just eliminating staff, it is going to get worse. It'll be harder to have those applications and those grants processed. It'll be harder and take longer to assess what needs are. And this is a major source of revenue, particularly for schools that struggle, our poorer communities and poorer districts. The federal government helps fill the gap. I think every kid in America ought to have a chance at a decent education. And if you take out the federal government's role in this, which, by the way, the American people in Congress said the federal government does have a role. We vote for this. The spending bills the last couple of years have been bipartisan. We voted for this, cross-party lines, to support our local schools. I think the impact could be huge. You hear it from educators, you hear it from families. I think it's foolish. I think it puts a lot of our communities and our kids, especially vulnerable kids, at risk.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Klein. I live in Edgeworth Borough, Allegheny County. I echo almost all the concerns from your opening statement, but specifically, Social Security is not an entitlement program. I paid into it all my working life. I am now retired. How can you protect not only Social Security, but Medicare as well for us seniors who rely on these very important programs?
Thank you. You went to one of the things I try to say, that this is not something that just happens. You earn it, you pay into it. This is part of the social compact in America, that Social Security is going to be there. It's been one of the most important programs since its inception in the New Deal to help seniors have a decent retirement. And let's not forget, right? What's happened outside of Social Security? Pensions have been under attack, right? Employers shifted everything over to the extent they even offer anything to things like 401ks. Social Security has so much more importance in people's lives and retirements. It's a big deal. And again, it's part of the social compact. I'm on legislation to protect this, right? People talk about, insolvency. It's a choice to ignore the fact that billionaires, and I'm not exaggerating, someone makes $1 billion, they pay the same towards Social Security someone makes $180,000. That's crazy. You fix that, you make Social Security shored up for the generations to follow me and my kids. We should do that. And yet, I mentioned it at the outset, I heard Mr. Musk, many of you might have heard it this week, wants to target Social Security.
Support Musk.
Well, the point is, guys like me, I have plenty of allies in Congress, are going to do everything we can to defend Social Security and Medicare. But the people who are not standing up ought to hear from folks that this is something that matters to this country. These are earned benefits. We shouldn't be cutting them. We should be strengthening them.
All right, our next number, 667015. 66, oh, we got it. Perfect. All right, and then after that, we will do 667004. Anybody? 667004. Oh, gotcha. Okay, great. All right, you're up.
Hi, my name is Sharon Koch, and I live in Scott Township. I get tons of requests from individual representatives, senators for monetary donations. They're from all over the United States. But my question is, what is the Democratic Party doing as a whole to bring together a big force? Where is that one charismatic leader that can inspire more people?
Can you, I missed a little bit. You said, what is the Democratic Party as a whole? And I missed a little bit. Could you say that again?
Who's that person, or what is the Democratic Party as a whole doing to get that message out instead of these individuals that come to us one by one?
Thank you. I won't spend the entire hour we have talking about the problems with campaign finance, which money in politics, believe me, is a huge problem. I talk about corruption, it is part of it. Certainly the unending corporate money that flows through our elections, I think, is a big problem. And look, This is not a campaign event. I want to be respectful of the fact that I'm here as the member of Congress and not as a partisan candidate. I speak for me, right? And I think our parties, the Democrats and Republicans, battle it out in Washington quite a bit. We all see this, right? Sometimes it's a little less than friendly. That's okay. We can throw some punches now and again, figuratively. But I think what you see, we have Republican control of the White House, Republican control of the House, Republican control of the Senate. And a lot of the folks in my party don't have a clear agreement about the best path forward. And what I think my job is to do is what you heard me articulate at the beginning of this. That's what I believe. I think that is whatever your party, what we are standing up for in Washington. The attacks on our constitutional order, right? That shouldn't be a partisan problem, but yet somehow it is. And for me, I think fighting and rooting out corruption, talking about who the villains are, who are making life expensive and bad for people. So often it's this unending corporate power that's strangling out workers and small businesses in our communities. And then the positive part of this, of how to make life decent for people. All of that ties in together, and I think is where I want to see our country go. Whatever the Democratic Party decides it wants to be, or the Republicans decide they want to be. That's what I believe. And that's what I'm trying to push whoever will work with me to do, and to frankly make center of our politics.
Thank you. All right, who have we got next?
Okay. Thank you. I'm Alice. I'm from Wilkinsburg. And there are so many issues that are very concerning. But overarching, I think, is preservation of our democracy. And so my question is, I hear a lot of people say we have to vote them out in 2 years. How do we know, or how can you guarantee that we are even going to have a fair election in 26?
I have great faith in all of us, right? If I didn't believe that we can govern ourselves, I would never ask any of you to send me to Washington to represent us. I believe that we are fundamentally good and decent people. Certainly us in Western PA, right? We're good and decent people. Americans across the country. I trust our judgment. I think that we understand that we are all in this thing together. We make some different decisions now and again. Where I thought should have happened last year? I fundamentally think we will hold this experiment of ours together. We have elections in this off year for judicial candidates and municipal candidates and school boards. We'll have national and state elections next year. I think the American people are good. I think that our democracy will hold. I think that there are plenty of us who are willing to uphold our oaths and hold the line for our democracy. But I said it at the outset, it's under stress, right? Those attacks on the constitutional order are very real. I don't want to diminish that. And the decision of this collective body of all of us is made every day. And attending something like this, writing my office or our senators, registering to vote, deciding you're going to participate in our democracy. It's not just me and members of Congress. We have to do our duty, and I will. But it's all of us. And again, I have optimism in the system of ours. And I know deep in my bones that we will succeed in this thing, and that I'm going to give it everything I can to make sure we do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question will be 667039. 667039. We got one. All right, and then after that, we will have 667017. Wonderful. All right, you're up first.
Hi, Congressman Deluzio. I'm Nettie Owens. I'm from Indiana Township, and my question actually comes from my husband, who's not able to be here tonight. He's most concerned, as am I, about the corruption that you talked about. We are seeing every day where things are happening in the executive branch, the judicial branch is trying to fight it. How do we stop this corruption from happening? And how do we remove the people who are criminals from our government?
You know, I think, can everyone hear me? Okay, I keep going back for water because I'm going to lose my voice if I don't do that. Look, I think the corruption problem, which I think is very real and a very real danger, ties into will our democracy remain strong? Because if we have oligarchy, right, we don't have economic liberty, there's not freedom in our democracy. I think those things are linked. And I think about the corruption you're asking about. I talked about a little bit about, Mr. Musk having all these federal contracts and being in a position to influence what the government does to serve his business interests. I think about a president selling his cars on the White House driveway the other day. But I think corruption is even more than that, right? I talked a little bit about our campaign finance system, the way our elections and campaigns are funded. Most of the ads you see on TV are corporate super PACs spending unlimited money as much as they want or can spend. That's corrupting in our politics. My colleagues in the House or in the Senate who get access to sensitive information and go trade stocks and make money on it, I think that's corrupt. Like all of these things to me tie into corruption. And it comes back again to that question of our democracy. If you think the people who we send to govern ourselves are corrupt, you aren't going to trust our government. And so I think rooting out corruption is about tending to our democracy. The Congress has a big role to play. We should absolutely ban members from trading stock. I can tell you, members get access to sensitive things. They should not get rich on that stuff. They should not do it. But it's broader than that, right? And the things you asked about and what we were talking about, you need real checks in the Congress on executive branch corruption. And I will tell you, even bills to protect sensitive Treasury payment systems from being abused by DOJ, we would need 3 of my Republican counterparts to join with Democrats to pass a bill like that. And we cannot get them to join us. And again, I am not a guy who does not work across party lines. I do it a lot. You've heard me talk about rail safety and manufacturing. I go on and on. But for us to have effective checks on what's happening in this administration, we need people with some political courage. I'm doing it. I have colleagues who will do it. We need political courage across the aisle. We need more of it. So that's what I keep saying, make your voices heard because they need to hear from you.
Thank you. All right. Who do we have up next?
Hi, I'm Carol Caliendo, and I live in McCandless Township. And my question sort of follows what the other woman asked. We have had some success in the courts with the court causing injunctions to require that Trump not do some of these cuts. For example, to the grants and not cut some of the departments. And I don't trust him. That might come as a surprise, but I don't trust him. And when he refuses to follow those court orders, what recourse do we have?
Well, as you say correctly, so far, our courts have done what we would expect them to do, which is to uphold the rule of law, to put a block to things that are illegal or against the law. Even I think today, we saw these firings of probationary employees at places like the Veterans Affairs Administration, and others put on hold. And so those are the correct decisions we should see. Now, your question is what will happen if they don't listen? Well, let's number one, hope they do. They should, right? The oath that they take, any executive branch official and president, the same one that we all take. So the Constitution, and our courts have a very important role in that. Now, I come back to all of us have something to say about strengthening this democracy. You should expect your members of Congress to be clear and direct if we see someone violating the rules of law, violating our Constitution. I promise you I will do that. And if someone who's an executive branch official violates their oath, if they break the law, defy orders in violation of the Constitution, and they commit high crimes and misdemeanors, they ought to be removed from office, period. That's the simple answer.
Thank you, guys. All right, our next number is 667040. All right, we got one. And then after that will be 667042.
Frank Carbone, Hopewell Township via McKees Rocks. Now that you are on the Transportation Committee, what are we going to do about a highway bill that funds the highways, that doesn't depend on gas taxes, which the gas tax hasn't changed since I was a kid and I'm 82. And that's my question. I mean, how are we going to solve the problem? Because we're using less and less gas. And how do we keep our highways in shape?
Thank you. And some of this plays in or touches into how things at Harrisburg play out, right? Of what our state government will do. And I think the fundamental problem, we've seen some proposals on this, especially as we've got hybrids and EVs on the road, right? Those miles are not contributing to tax revenues for upkeep of highways. And so first and foremost, I think, and I've seen proposals out of Harrisburg to make it a miles driven or an annual kind of fee, and we'll see what my Harrisburg counterparts will do. But the other part of what you're getting at, I think, is our federal infrastructure investment around highways. And it's not just highways. So, before I came to the Congress in 2021, President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure law. You had Democrats, some Republicans pass this thing to invest in highways, roads, bridges, locks and dams, rail, all this stuff. That funding is getting close to ending. I mentioned that President Trump is trying to freeze some of this, and I think that's foolish, and I'm glad the courts have blocked that. But that funding is going away, and it can't be the answer that for big national infrastructure needs, our Congress kicks the can down the road for decades and then asks a Congress 10, 20 years from now to pony up a massive number that would be less if we invested it steadily over time. So we are on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, one of the committees I serve on, right? We're going to have bills coming up that are about reauthorizing funding for exactly this kind of work. And I do not believe that we should be deferring and delaying improvements and upkeep of our infrastructure. It just means we pay more down the road. And the other part of it is these are good, solid construction jobs while we make the work. And it juices our economy to be able to move goods and people more quickly, right? Things like infrastructure are what our government should be investing in. So I don't know if this should be that complicated, but as you say, we got work to do.
Thank you very much. All right, our next question.
Hi, my name is Diane. I'm from Fox Chapel. And I have a very kind of get more into the weeds. What specific actions can we do to influence, for example, our Democratic state senator, so we get an outcome on this budget bill? Are there particular Republican senators or Republican representatives in Pennsylvania that would be more efficient for us to work on? Or are there particular arguments that would have more influence on these people so we can start moving in the direction that you're talking about?
Thank you. Well, let me talk a little bit at first about what I think you're asking about, what the government funding bill in Washington. And let me just tell everybody what's going on, and I'm going to get to it. So I got home yesterday. The House voted party line vote on a bill to keep our government funded through the end of the fiscal year. Okay, the government fiscal year ends September 30th. So we had extended funding in the winter until March 14th, tomorrow. There had been a bipartisan agreement on spending levels. It was negotiated. It kind of blew up in December. I won't blame. lay blame. My Republican counterparts decided to put a very partisan spending bill in front of the House this week. And me calling it partisan is not enough for, I think, you to think it's bad. Let me tell you why I think it's bad. The bill they had us vote on increased the deficit, right? So more spending that we will all pay for with debt for a long time. It did a bunch of bad things like underfunding the emergency food program, making cuts to the National Institute of Health, that NIH funding I talked about. It defunded the Cost of War Toxic Exposure Fund. Well, what is that? That is the fund that Congress set up to pay for care and benefits for veterans exposed to toxic burn pits, Agent Orange, horrible stuff. And it had been pre-funded for next year to the tune of $22 billion. And the bill that the House just passed, that I voted against, took that $22 billion and made it $0. Okay? So I don't want to, I could spend the whole night talking about what I think was bad about that bill. I put a statement out. I opposed it, but it passed. And so now it is with the Senate. And the Senate is figuring out what the heck they will do. I think the responsible thing would be to pass a few weeks of government funding, very neutral, just keep government funding extended for a few weeks. Let us go hammer out a deal that can earn the support of both parties. I will fly back to Washington immediately and go do that. I've put that out publicly. I think most of my colleagues would do the same. We shall see what our senators do. I cannot tell you the specific things to say or do to our senators or anyone else. I would just say, participate in this democracy and make your voice heard. I thought the spending bill was a bad deal. I talked about some of those problems. They haven't decided yet in the Senate. I will leave it to you for how best to participate, but I think the point is that our voices matter, that they should be hearing from people about what these impacts are on all of us and our communities.
Thank you, Congressman. It is 6:44, so I think we have time for one more set of questions. So that first number will be 667114. Anybody? 667114. Going once, going twice. All right, next one will be 667117. All right, we've got one. And then our second question will be 667132. Anybody? 667132? Ah, gotcha.
I'm Chris Pajak. I'm from Coriopolis. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us. I'm very angry. I think and frankly, I was starting to get angry with you. The first woman's question, Social Security, Medicare. You gave a very superficial answer. I need you to tell us what you and your committee are doing to protect it. We paid into it. It's not an entitlement. We need it. We need to know that it's going to be protected. My mother's living on it. I mean, we've got to get it together. What are you doing?
So I mean, as you can imagine, people call into my office and share stories about the impact of Social Security to their lives. We get hundreds of stories about impacts and thoughts on opinions and on these kinds of bills. Woman write in talking about widow, right, who worked her whole career. This is Social Security be the difference between being out in the street or not. And I'm sure we have many examples of how important Social Security is to so many people in my district and all over the country. The answer to your question is everything that we possibly can to protect it. Everything. I have legislation to protect Social Security. I give speeches to protect Social Security. I talk to the press. We rally. All of the things and all the tools at our disposal. Everything we possibly can. There are outside groups doing everything they can in the courts to stop the firings at places like the Social Security Administration. Every tool at our disposal. That is the answer. I need political courage from other members of Congress to do the same thing. I need them to join us to stand. I need courage from people to stand up and say that Social Security ought to be protected. So who here thinks that Social Security ought to be cut? No one. And yet they're trying to do it. Think about it. What are you doing? Everything we can to stop it. Everything we can to stop it. Every single thing we can to stop it. And that is the choice. And all of us have a participation in this. All of us have a role. And we need political courage from them to stop doing what they are doing.
All right, let's move on to the next question so we get everybody in.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm from Canonsburg. Hello. I've worked in long-term care for over 30 years, so I'm here really representing the senior population, aging services, and what is being done to preserve, in particular, Medicaid.
So folks may know the budget proposal that passed out of the House targeted $880 billion in Medicaid cuts. $880 billion. What does that mean in this district, Western Pennsylvania? More than 120,000 of my constituents. That's their health care. People with disabilities, kids, a lot of people in this district, a lot of people all over this country. And can you guys hear me in the back? Get some static. Everyone? Yes, no? Okay. 120,000 people in this district. That is the difference between being able to get medicine and care, see a doctor or not. And that budget proposal, those cuts you're talking about, it was taking away that healthcare, targeting those cuts to plunder our government, right? To funnel tax giveaways. Trillions to our deficit. Trillions in tax giveaways for the ultra rich. I oppose that. I vote against it. We are talking about it constantly. We rallied downtown Pittsburgh a week or two ago. You have colleagues penning letters, giving floor speeches, all the things that we have to do and more to stop this from happening. Now, I've seen a handful of my Republican counterparts who voted for this saying, well, they're not going to cut Medicaid. They've passed a budget resolution that calls for exactly that. They've called for exactly that. And so my question to them is, what are you going to do? You're going to pass this tax cut on the backs of our constituents and our people? I think it's ridiculous. I think it's obscene. And we've heard not just from patients and families, long-term care facilities, nursing homes, rural hospitals, all telling members of Congress that if those Medicaid cuts happen, they're going to close facilities because they can't keep them open. All of us will suffer. We will have fewer options for health care and senior care if these guys do what they're trying to do.
All right, everyone, before I hand it back over to the congressman, we have
a couple. We can do a couple more. Let's do a couple more questions, yeah?
Yeah, we can do a couple more. All right, next up will be 667013. Got it? Okay. And then next after that will be 667025. Six, 7025. Oh, gotcha. All right. 667025. Right there. Okay. All right. First up with Vicky in the back.
Hi, my name is Julia. I live in Fox Chapel as well. A lot of the questions I have been asked, and I think there's a lot of anger that, a righteous anger. I will say this, thank you, Chris, for doing what you can. You are in the minority. And I think that maybe the most effective use of your time is to go to the other representatives. So, and aside, I just want to say everybody in this room that you know people that live outside his district that have Republican representatives, tell those people to call their rep. So tell them to call again.
Well, thank you. And I'll say something, and I speak for my team in my office. We care about constituent calls and letters and writing in. I think every office should, but I speak for me and my team. It matters when we hear from folks. So I just hope you understand that. It is a big deal to me and my team. I get reports and readouts, and I pick up the phone when I can. I do as much of this as I can. It really matters for us to hear from our constituents to what you care about and what you want your government and our government to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm from McCandless. I'm a licensed mental health provider in the state of Pennsylvania. And one thing that's not talked about with Medicaid cuts is how it will devastate mental health for decades. Because when we come out of school, we can only see people who are through Medicaid programs. We won't be able to get licensed. There won't be providers. There won't be programs. That's not talked about. I just want to say that. Also, the tariffs. My husband sells for a company. They make a product. It is made in Buffalo. They rely on aluminum from Canada. He could lose his job over this. What's going to be done about things like that? And then my last point is the NIH funding. We've talked about, but the grant meetings that were canceled hasn't been talked about. And I don't know if that's being fought in the courts. 3 of those were for pancreatic cancer. My brother died from that at age 41. Those people have no hope. They have no options. And 3 studies canceled. We need that. We need this stuff.
Thank you. Well, thank you for raising the point on Medicaid and mental health. I think many of us know that, but it needs to be part of what we are talking about on the impacts of these cuts. And on the NIH and the treatment, I mean, my goodness, we had a roundtable with Pitt researchers, faculty, grad workers, staff about exactly the problem you identified, that even if the funding isn't frozen, the way that administration is cutting off these meetings and convenings is putting a pause to research and things that need to happen to move those research and treatments forward. We're already seeing impacts of this, and the folks at Pitt talked about it, and it's very dangerous and why so many of us are trying to push back on it. And on trade, I will tell you, as a guy who wants us to make more in this country, that the president's trade approach has been really reckless and bad. It has been crazy to me. It has been crazy to me to see the president be weaker on China that breaks so many of the rules around trade than he is on our friends to the north in Canada. And yes, 2 days ago, you mentioned aluminum to announce steel and aluminum tariffs, and then the same day get rid of them. I'm a person who thinks that strategic tariffs along with industrial policy, pro-worker policies, all these things can exist together to protect American manufacturing and jobs. What they're doing is not going to work, and it's not working. Think about if you're a business who wants to make something in America and you are seeing day to day, week to week, different tariff announcements affect your industry. How are you going to plan to build a factory in this country? How are you going to make investments and decide that you want to put it right here when you have that kind of uncertainty? It doesn't work. And they're doing this thing called reciprocal tariffs. What does that mean? That if we launch a tariff on a country, they'll lower it down in response. But we've had, since the lousy deal of NAFTA with Mexico, essentially duty-free access to Mexican markets since the 90s. And guess what? Our trade deficit with Mexico has ballooned. That's because they keep worker pay artificially low, undercutting American workers. You cannot fix that alone with tariffs. You cannot. You need better trade deals that lift up workers, that make countries pay the cost of their pollution, that tells countries like communist China, you cannot circumvent our rules and import in the United States through Mexico. You have to go back to the negotiating table and deal with a range of things, and tariffs alone are not the only answer. So thank you for asking that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Before I hand it back over to the congressman, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, if you did not, that's it. We've got to get out of here. I'm sorry. First of all, if you did not get to ask a question and you wanted to, can you guys put up the info on the... Guys, we only have the space until 7, so we do actually have to get out of here. So if you did not get to ask a question, please sign up for our next town hall event, which will be on Wednesday, April 9th, same time from 6 to 7. That one will be by telephone. So if you scan the QR code next to the congressman, you'll get a link to sign up for that. You can submit questions on those as well. Also, to stay in the loop, please. Guys, we need to get through these so we can get out of here. Because we only have the space until 7. I'm sorry. Yes. If you would like to sign up for our newsletter, that's the best way to be notified of these events. So you can scan this QR code. We also host a congressional art competition and congressional app challenge for high schoolers every year. Those deadlines will be coming up in the spring. If you want more information on those, please go to our website. Again, it's deluzio.house.gov. And as always, we are here and our team, we've got Deluzio team members all around to help you with any federal issue that you might have. So if you have an issue with a federal agency, whether that's the IRS, whether it's Social Security, please call our office and let us know. We are happy to help. We also have a page on our website where you can input your experience if you've been affected by any of the president's executive orders. We've been collecting stories from all over the district. Those have been really meaningful to hear. It's something that we use to write back to committees when they're not getting us answers, to agencies when they're not getting us answers. These are the things that give us ammunition in our fight to stand up to the administration. So if you've been affected by executive orders, please go to our website. We get to read all those stories and it's really meaningful for us. So with that, I will hand it back over to Congressman Deluzio.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think maybe not everyone agrees, but I think most of us understand that our country is in a very precarious moment and that we are seeing something altogether different. And that I hope and expect that this country will hold, that we will get through this, but that it will not be easy and nothing is a foregone conclusion. And that my job in this is to do everything I can to follow the Constitution, to make sure that those who are in power are held to account, that I represent our interests as well as I can. I love this country deeply. I love it very deeply. I took the oath the first time as a 17-year-old, the same one I talk about tonight that I took in Congress. I'm gonna do everything I can to uphold it. I will give everything I have to this job. I will give this everything that I have. It is a great honor to represent us, all of us down in Washington, guys. Thank you so much.